Welcome to the Business for Breakfast seminar series presented by Huddleston Bolen. Business for Breakfast seminars provide very practical information for business people on topics ranging from sales and marketing to customer service, employee relations, technology, and accounting. For information about upcoming seminars, go to www.huddlestonbolen.com/events. To view videos of past seminars, visit e4b-huddlestonbolen.com. Today's special seminar is Handling Workplace Conflict. Our guest speaker for this lunchtime event is Scott Sheets, a partner at Huddleston Bolen.
One of the big topic areas that's coming up in employment circles is bullying, and it's what I call a subset of harassment. And harassment in a work environment typically is geared toward what we call protected categories. In other words, you're being harassed because you're a woman, you're being harassed because you have a disability, or because you're a racial minority. Those are all kinds of actionable legal harassment where lawsuits can arise. What about bullying, where you're being picked on, but it's not because you're a woman or you're a man or you're over 40 or you have a disability? What's the difference between workplace harassment and workplace bullying? Workplace bullying has gotten some sort of vague definitions. It's generally repeated, unreasonable actions of a supervisor or coworker directed toward an employee or group of employees which are intended to engender feelings of dread, fear, intimidation, humiliation, and/or intended to denigrate and undermine someone. Other words, you're just being picked on. Someone is doing things to you or not allowing you opportunities because they don't like you. Or because they want to make your life miserable. And it's not, like I said, because of any protected category you might fit in. What are some examples of bullying in the workplace? Extensive criticism. You're constantly being watched by your supervisor. You're being blamed for things that you haven't done without any basis for it. You're being cursed at, yelled at, having pencils thrown at you. No, not like your daily workplace. You're being dressed down in front of coworkers, humiliated, embarrassed in front of your coworkers. You're being closely monitored. You're repeatedly being required to work over, to do difficult work assignments in an unreasonable period of time. These are some things that can form a bullying situation. Now, what's the difference between bullying and motivating? If you're talking to your supervisor and your supervisor's yelling at you, you did this wrong, you should have done this way, you're not getting to work on time, you're not putting enough effort into things, is it bullying or is it motivating? A lot of times there's not a fine line. Sometimes it's the supervisor's just frustrated and he or she is trying to get you to be a better employee, to motivate you to do your potential, and you of course feel it differently. You feel like you're being picked on, you're being embarrassed, you're being dressed down. Again, where's the fine line? There is no fine line. And that's the bottom line, I guess, is that it really depends. And bullying are generally situations where it's repeated. It's something that constantly occurs. It's not a one-time event where someone is mad because you messed up a project and they blow at you and then it's over. And the next day they're fine and work goes on as normal. A bullying situation in the workplace is where there's a continuous repetition of this type of behavior towards you. So what are some things that make a workplace susceptible to bullying? Because not every workplace has a bullying environment. Some of the factors can be a cutthroat atmosphere. If you have a workplace where there's intense competition among the employees, in order to get prime projects or to get the raise or the bonus, if you've got a lot of impetus put on you from up above to more or less backstab your coworker, that's a situation that gives rise to bullying. An overabundance of type A personalities. Think about it. You've got a group of people. Not everybody's the same. Some of us are more passive. Some of us are very aggressive. You get a situation where you've got a bunch of aggressive people working together and they're very competitive. You get the situation where just the natural instincts take over and they ferret out the weakest one, and that's the one they go after, and that's the one they want to push out, and then someone else becomes the weakest one, and so on. Poor training of supervisors. Some workplaces have people in supervisory positions who have no idea how to supervise people. They're not managers. They've never had management courses or management training. They've gotten this position by virtue of rising up through the ranks, so to speak, and suddenly they've got 4, 5, 6 people under them. They don't really know how to manage them. What about the examples that's being set at the top? That says a lot about how a workplace operates. If the top management are very bullying oriented, it's going to filter on down, because the people who are looking to rise up in an organization think they've got to emulate those people at the top, and so they take on the same characteristics. Blind allegiance to the bottom line. And of course the bottom line I'm talking about is money in the door. And any business, that's always a prime focus. I mean, if you don't get money in the door, you're not going to be able to pay your employees. People aren't going to profit. It's not going to continue for very long. But if you put so much emphasis on the bottom line that you lose sight of the employees, you lose sight of the people who help to create the bottom line, you might foster a situation where bullying takes hold. What's it do? Obviously, it brings down morale. If you bring down the morale of a workplace, you create other problems for the workplace that you don't necessarily think of. Well, people are down, they don't feel good about where they work, but they have to work somewhere, so they're going to work here. Yeah, but what do they start doing? Lost days, lost daily productivity, job turnover, more use of time off. People take sick days, mental health days, as some people call them. Reputation in the work community. That starts to occur too. If you work at a place where it's known that people are bullied, that gets out, and people don't want to come and work for you. So those are some of the effects that workplace bullying can have. There's also, as I talked about with HR directors, there's potential legal risks. Workplace bullying by itself is not something that can give rise to a lawsuit. But you start throwing in other factors, and suddenly you've got a lawsuit on your hands. For example, if the bullied party can somehow fit into one of the protected categories, I'm a female in a predominantly male environment, I'm over 40, I have a disability, I'm a religious minority, suddenly that becomes what the lawsuit's about, even though the underlying factor is really workplace bullying. So why do employers often tolerate bullying work environments? Why do they put up with it? Obviously, first thing we talked about, the bottom line. Yep, that's a big thing. A lot of times the bully is a star performer for the company. Sometimes bullying claims are looked at as personality conflicts just between the employees, and the supervisor doesn't want to get involved. A lot of times that happens, especially if it's same gender setting. You have 2 women, 2 men who aren't getting along. They just can't get along with each other. It's nothing we really need to involve ourselves in, just a personality conflict. Some employers look at it as, well, it's not really legal harassment. It's not really a hostile work environment as it's defined under employment law, so I'm not going to get involved. We can't get sued over that. Very much a cop-out because what you're doing is setting yourself up for it turning into a hostile work environment where a legal action might occur. Train your supervisors and managers in the harassment and bullying policy. Make sure that managers and supervisors understand what the policy is, that the workplace should be a situation where people can come to work without fear of being harassed or fear of being bullied by supervisors and coworkers. And encourage an open door policy at HR. All human resource departments should have that. They should have a policy where if you have a complaint, whether it's big, little, formal, informal, you have a concern, bring it to HR so someone can address it. That's something that we would encourage employers to put in their policies. Now, what are some things employees should do if they feel that they're being bullied? Well, first thing I suggest is to consider whether you're being bullied or just being motivated and you don't particularly like the motivation. Are you being too sensitive, in other words? And some people are. Some people are very sensitive. You look at them the wrong way, they fall apart. They can't stand up to just everyday stress of a work environment, and it's stressful. As all of you know, you work for people who sometimes they don't have a good day. and they're not the most pleasant person to be around. But are you being too sensitive to the situation, or do you feel like you're really being bullied? Stop and think about it. Determine whether your coworkers feel the same way you do. That's a good measure of whether it's just you or whether it's the person you think's bullying you. Are your coworkers feeling like they're being bullied? If you bring it up to them, do they give you the blank stare like, what are you talking about? That's just the way he is. He's not bullying you. Ask around and see if other people are getting the same treatment. If you're in a situation where you think you're the one who's always getting asked to work overtime, you're the one who's always getting these must-have assignments with only very little time to do, ask your coworkers, do you get this kind of work from him or her? If they're getting the same thing, unlikely it's unlikely it's bullying, more than likely it's just a setting. Your particular work setting is a high-stress work environment, and it's not really that you're being bullied. The other thing I encourage employees to do when they feel like they're in a bullying situation, report it. Go to your HR department, talk to the director or the representative from HR and say, I've got a concern. I feel like Joe Schmo is just picking on me. He yells at me all the time. I'm doing the best I can. He never yells at anybody else, and I just don't understand why I have to put up with this. If you don't tell somebody that you're experiencing an unpleasant work situation, there may not be anyone who realizes that you're experiencing it. You think, well, my supervisor knows. Well, but maybe your supervisor doesn't realize what he or she is doing or the effect it's having on you. Sometimes a third party has to intervene, and the best place for that is the HR department.